Okay, hey everybody, I'm back. I'm Chris Steller, a senior at OPHS, and I'm afraid to confirm the worst. Matthew McGarity has announced that we are going forward with the 5 day plan, and I don't want to sound like a bummer, but I have not met a single person that wants to go back. And you know, people are going to say, this is just some stupid high school kid that he doesn't want to go to school every day. But I'm afraid that there's a lot worse involved, and I'm hoping by the end of this video you can see everything wrong with this plan and why we should have taken more than a second to think about it, and hopefully convince you that we ought to try and appeal this and get past it. So I'm going to show you two. I've got a slideshow that I'd like to go through. So here's the letter that came out today. Matthew McGarity says, as long as the cases are 100 per 100,000, we're going to be in full time. And the hybrid model no longer exists. You don't have a choice to come every other day. It's full time or no time. And there's going to be a webinar on Thursday, May 13th, for parents, which I'll address later, right? But the thing that rubs me wrong about this is that 2 months ago, on March 9th, Matthew McGarity, I don't want to pin all the blame on him because he's just a mouthpiece for the school board, but he did say that there's no capacity, there's no way that we can fit everybody at full capacity for 5 days a week with the 3 feet restrictions. This bit in the video, it says almost exactly that.
It's not just a space issue, but it's a scheduling issue.
And let me replay that really quick.
True for our district. I think physically we don't have the space.
It's not just a space issue, but it's a scheduling issue.
So she asked, we don't have the space, the logistics aren't there to fit everybody, and Mr. McGarity says, yeah, it's not just a space issue, it's a scheduling issue. But most importantly, he acknowledges that it is absolutely a space issue, but we're going forward with it even though it violates the guidelines. So this seems to be like the solution for now, but it's just kind of weird, right? Like, they're using these at the elementary school right now for my little sister. She goes to Ellicott, and she said they've been reading or doing lunch, but I imagine that we're going to try and move classes into these tents, and it seems like it'll be a good idea since it's nicer out. However, there's a lot of questions that come up, like what if it rains? What if I mean, can we put walls on this thing? I mean, I went here and took pictures of it today, and it's basically just PVC pipe in a barrel. There's no hooks to fasten any walls up, and even if we did have walls, wouldn't it just become a heat trap in the midst of June? So, and plus it's outside. Like, think about this: anybody can walk on those paths. Anything can go on outside. If we're having class in here, are you seriously engaged? If the point of putting everyone in school 5 days a week was for greater participation and engagement in our education, I feel like this is just moving entirely away from it. And we should bring up too that we're moving desks into the gym like we would at exams, and so that we can have multiple classrooms in the gym, like some sort of like K-8 schoolhouse. And when we have that many people in one room teaching so many lessons, how can you even focus? It just doesn't make sense. Like we said that we don't have enough space. Mr. McGarity said that 2 months ago, and so why we would go through this doesn't make sense. You can't fit everybody in a Orchard Park classroom with 3 feet restrictions, especially if you have classes of 20 people. What are we gonna do? Split the class in half, and put them somewhere else? But do we have teachers to accommodate the students that are being split off? It just doesn't add up here. These tents, they seem like a good idea in theory, but it almost seems like a security risk too. Can't anybody just walk up? There's just a bunch of students just sitting here, and anyone can walk by these paths. We've seen people in gym when we're outside just with their dog or something, but I don't want to jump to the worst conclusion, but anybody can do something nefarious with a bunch of children just sitting around outside. So it's just flawed. You can obviously see what's wrong here. And if there was an emergency, say it was raining, do you send everybody inside? And if we have the gym full of desks too, we do gym outside, but say the weather is not well, what do we do with people in gym? Where do they go? And I'd like to show you too a video that I took. I'll go back to that, but I just want to show you a video. This was there was a fire alarm. There was like a smoke breach in the library about a month ago, and it was too cold, so they brought everyone inside, but they didn't really know what to do. So we had easily 200 people in the commons. Like, you can see everybody shoulder to shoulder sitting up over there. It was just bizarre. I mean, like, we aren't really taking COVID seriously in the school anymore, even though in the last week there have been 2 cases in the school. So think you double the population for 5 days a week in the school. Does that mean double the cases or quadruple? I mean, you see how careless people are in the hallways right now. There's people with masks over your nose. I mean, half the student population can't even be vaccinated. You have to be at least 16 to get the Pfizer one, and 18 to get Moderna. I mean, there's talks of changing it to 12 and up, but is that going to take place before the school year is over? So this is a health concern as well as an education concern. Another thing I want to bring up is parking. We only have half the school every day, and we allow juniors in the parking lot, and had I known that this was going to happen today, I would have taken a picture of the parking lot this morning. But I think my red outline line is a fair and generous assessment of what the parking lot looks like in the morning, and that's just with half the school net. I counted them all up. If you don't trust me, go ahead. There's 140 spots typically taken in the morning and 73 spots available, which is about half of what only half the school is taking every morning. So what's the solution? Do we hunt down every junior and strip their parking pass to give them an athletic lot one? Or more likely, do we just let it be a free-for-all for the last month, and all those seniors who have waited 4 years for their privileges are just shafted into fending for their own spot? You have to think too, I haven't been on the buses in a while, but when I was forced to sit next to somebody else, and that was about 2 years ago. I'm not sure how it is with COVID, but if we're doubling the amount of people on buses every morning, you got to think parents are going to want to drive their kids to school more. The parking lot's already clogged with parents, even though they're not supposed to be in the Baker lot. They're supposed to go to Freeman. Think how many more people are going to be in this parking lot. We're going to be prone to accidents. It just doesn't make sense to do in the last month of school. And there are so many viable cases to argue for an appeal, and I just want to prove that to you, but there's more. A teacher brought up today, what about AP exams? Why are we starting this new schedule that's going to totally jerk us out of our normal lives that we've been experiencing in the last few months, just before we have these big exams that we spent $100 per and likely will save us more money in the future? Personally, I have 4 AP exams this year, and it's just going to be absolutely miserable. I can't imagine for the poor, like, freshmen or sophomores who have never taken an AP exam, and this is the first sort of thing they've had this entire year to mentally unwind or be productive in between, and now you're going to bed. Likely you're going to bed at the same time that you were when you were expecting to have a day off, yet you're still waking up at 6 a.m. to make it in time for school in the morning, and then you might have an exam the next day or something like that. It's such a flawed. They didn't think for a moment how this would affect people personally. Like, do you know how many people work schedule revolve around school? And you can say work is just you don't have to do that, but in reality, we're going to be paying student loans for how much longer for the next years of our life? Like, when you want to get ahead of that right now, and I feel like people just complain that we have no sort of sense of responsibility, and yet we're thrust with all this and then forced to deal with it all on our own. And it just makes me sick. The amount of depression and anxiety in our society for adolescents especially, and then you just stack this on top. It's like why do we just there's no consultation for the students at all. It's just, I don't know. What I want to say is that we're not consulted. Those resources, the AP schedule and the original letter from Matthew McGarry that said, we're going to be full time. I got those from my parents. They didn't even send me that. I'm legally an adult, and they couldn't even tell me how I was going to conduct the next month of my life in school. So it just feels kind of like a betrayal that they don't trust us to handle our own responsibility, yet they want to put all of this on top of us and expect that we just handle it. Like, I mean, really, it's painful. When we went back remote in winter and then back to hybrid, like a revolving door, it's just, you get whiplash going back and forth. Nobody trusts us. Today at track, a lunch monitor was down at the track, and I was trying to tell people about this whole thing, right? Because it matters to me, because it affects us the most, and we have the smallest voice in the whole thing. And she goes, "Oh, honey, what? Just don't worry about it. Let the big people handle it." But the big people aren't handling it. We have to become the big people in order to actually see change. It just astonishes me that, like, people would rather just stand by and pretend like it's all okay, but it's not. And I'd like to advocate a protest. I don't see any other way to make change. May 17th is the beginning of our full-time back to school, and I think that would be a good time to create posters, banners, a peaceful protest, perhaps in the parking lot, and then the school board elections on May 18th, and we want to make our voice heard, go throughout the village and outside of the high school to just protest, let our voice be heard, let us know, let the community know, because I feel like people don't see it from our perspective. It's totally skewed. It's painful for us. We don't have any say, and the people on the school board. I mean, look at the re-election, right? We have an ex-board member. There's two seats up for grab, and there's 3 candidates: an ex-board member, a 30-year ex-teacher, and then this dude who just complains about cutting the budget. And lately, he's been talking about suing the state for more money. It's like Ryan Simo. He basically, he's like a Robbie De Niro that's already on the school board, and he's running for re-election on Tuesday. You can find all the stuff on his website, and I have nothing against it personally, but I just absolutely disagree with everything that he says in the school board meetings. You can watch them all online. All he cares, at least to me as a student, right? I don't understand how you can look to your kids and say, you're going to be the future, and we need to entrust you with everything. We need to give you the best possible chance to succeed in society. Yet this dude's advocating for cutting the budget because he's the voice of the taxpayers who aren't in school anymore, that don't really have perspective of what it's like in school. Orchard Park's has been one of the greatest high schools for me. I've gotten so many opportunities and everything, and I don't think we would have had those opportunities had we not had the money to spend in such unique places. I ran cross country for 4 years. I was captain on the team. I did so many other clubs like QTV, and we had the opportunity to make productions, live shows every morning, and we had donations from the Bills, and we were able to spend money that the school gave us to just enhance our whole show, and it was just amazing. And I don't know of any other school that can do that, and we can't do that without our budget, and we can't do that when somebody's advocating for 5 days a week, and in a world where 5 days a week just doesn't make sense yet. It's not time for that. I'd like to propose that we hoist up Mrs. Karen Stranowski. She's been a teacher for 30 years at elementary schools and middle schools. We have other people like Mr. Dwight Egan on the school board already. He is a vice president. Dr. Christine Gray-Tenez, she's the president. And another member, Dr. Jennifer Rogers. They've experienced the school system from bottom to top, through and through, and they're coming back to the community to help us in our academic careers and succeed in the future. So, with that, it's just kind of painful to see how much responsibility is thrown onto us and how much they expect us to just take before we can't do it anymore. And I don't see any other way. I just want somebody to listen and empathize with us, just help us out, right? I don't see why we can't appeal this. All we're doing is setting a precedent that says, if you're a parent in Orchard Park and you dislike some legislation in the district, why don't you just sue them, and they'll just roll over for you, and you get to do whatever you want as a parent. It's pay to play in Orchard Park, and you have free reigns if you have money. And that's not a school that I want to go to. That's not an education that I want my little sister to grow up in, or any of my friends who I've seen through the school system, or any American children who are going to be the ones in control in the future. I mean, what kind of world do you want to live in if the only influence is money, and we don't value education anymore. We value getting good grades, or just going to school for 5 days for whatever reason, even though it violates every logical bone in our body. Please, I want you to understand where the students are coming from, and feel for us and think about us, because we're the ones that are taking the brunt of this force. Robbie De Niro, you said that you're trying to help us. You're trying to help your kids get more education. But the fact is, we had it wasn't even a perfectly great system, but it was working, and we had been involved in it for the entire school year now. And then the last month, you want to come in and just tear it down for 5 days a week because it sounds good to the parents, the taxpayers who haven't been in the school system for 40, 50 years. I want us to make our voice heard on May 17th. I want to rally, to make banners, to make posters peacefully. And on May 18th, for the school board election, I want us to be heard. I would like for those who are in power on the school board, the superintendent, Matthew McGarity, to please I just want answers, right? I want to be part of the forum too on Thursday. It's for parents only. Why can't we have a forum for students? It just doesn't make sense. So that's what we're protesting for. We want to be heard. We want to be part of the conversation, especially when we're the ones that are taking the brunt of it. So, all I have to say is thank you for watching, and I hope that you stand with us.